Welcome to Sojunguk Art Talk. Today's work is Theodore Géricault's Raft of the Medusa. This work is considered one of the Louvre's finest, but without knowing the backstory, you can only get half the picture. This artwork is many things, the result of one youngster's adventure and passion, an exposé of a corrupt government, a bitter tale of human nature. To start with, we should consider the artist. Theodore Géricault was born and raised in a well-off family. At the time of its painting, he was a 27-year-old with dreams of being an artist, nothing out of the ordinary. These aspiring artists were plentiful in the Paris of 1818. And Géricault didn't particularly possess any outstanding talent, but he was well aware of this. He knew that he would require effort, and that's how Géricault proceeded. He wanted to produce a work that would become the talk of all Paris. He decided it would be good to start big. In the art world, big paintings attract a lot of attention. But they're also expensive. On top of material costs and the time it would take to finish, he would also need a spacious studio. Not easy without any support. Nevertheless, Géricault proceeded with his plan. And so, he prepared a canvas around 7 meters wide and 5 meters tall. And he searched for a workshop where he could immerse himself fully in his painting. Investing so much at such an early stage for a 27-year-old unknown artist was a great risk. Now he needs to decide what to paint. There were plenty of large works going around, so without a strong topic, he'd find himself buried. He would need a novel style too, try and avoid the fashionable way, as that was becoming the norm. After much consideration, he decided on his topic, the Raft of the Medusa. And the neoclassical style at the time would be too stifling for this subject. He wanted the extreme action seen in works by Rubens or Michelangelo. This was a lot to ask from a 27-year-old young artist at the time, to shake the entire foundations of the art world. But what actually was the Raft of the Medusa? It wasn't a beautiful story, or a sacred religious topic, or a tale from mythology. This was a horrendous accident from just a few years earlier. This was unheard of, depicting such a recent tragedy. What's more, it was a story nobody cared to recall, and to lay it out so openly on a 7 by 5 meter canvas, if it didn't succeed, he would be ridiculed. It was certainly a risk. Here's the story. In June of 1816, French naval frigate the Medusa was bound for Senegal. They were on their way to re-establish the French colony there, but on the way, the vessel was hit by a storm. They tried to turn back, but failed. The captain and his crew abandoned ship. But there were only 6 lifeboats on a vessel with 400 crewmen. The captain decided to fashion a makeshift raft from the wrecked Medusa, and 150 remaining crew members climbed on board. But the raft was no wider than 20 meters, and it could barely hold the weight of 150 passengers. So the raft, which barely floated about a meter under the water and falling to bits, found itself stranded in the open ocean. After 13 days, the wandering raft was rescued. However, only 15 of its passengers had survived. The other 135 had perished days ago. How did something like this happen? From the survivors' testimony, on the first night they were hit by rough seas. When they awoke, 20 of the crewmen had been swept away by the waves. On the second night, 2 drunken men got into a fight with the rest of the crew, and 65 men died. On the third night, in all the madness, the crew found themselves resorting to cannibalism. As they floated on that wretched raft, by the 7th day, only 27 men remained. 13 had lost their minds, and the others were on the verge of death. And several more days passed as they floated between life and death. After everything, only 15 men remained. Those men had overcome everything to survive, but would they ever be rid of this horrendous event? Would they face judgment for their savagery? Of the survivors, some died right after, and some faced legal action. As the captain's incompetency came to light, various parties passed the blame for the negligence. While half wanted to cover the accident up, and half wanted it exposed, Jericho decided to show everything up front. Let's take a look. We can see the broken raft. Riding on top amongst the gruesome passengers, it's hard to discern who is alive and who's already died. In the top right, we see some people waving their clothes. We can just about make out a faint ship in the distance. They are reaching out for a thin glimmer of hope, but that boat doesn't see them, and their hope disappears. Look at the bottom right. Hanging on by its legs is a dead passenger, his face submerged in the sea. Next to that, one man lies face down. He looks unable to survive much longer. Next to them, an old man grasps onto this youth, a lost expression on his face. Is it his son? From the looks of it, he's died already. Another corpse to the left, its body only half on the raft. Near the top of the scene, waving their hands and talking anxiously, these men still look sane. They are carrying hope. However, we can't say if these men are sane or not. What is clear is that they have survived through ruthless means. On the floor of the raft, a blood-stained axe. Jericho has drawn the raft in all its blood-soaked horror. How did he achieve such a feat? He didn't just make all these risky investments and dive into painting. It would never have made it to the Louvre. So, he had to start somewhere. Firstly, he found survivors. Drawing from imagination just wouldn't cut it this time. He had to depict each graphic emotion. Thankfully, 2 survivors agreed to help. They were the surgeon, Henri Savini, and the engineer, Alexandre Cordiard. On the basis of their testimony, Jericho recreated an accurate model of the raft, and they told stories of each of their fellow passengers. Jericho had managed to secure a studio near a hospital. At the hospital, he came face to face with real corpses and recreated faithfully their colour. He even took some bodies back to his studio so he could accurately paint the decomposition. In order to capture the faces of the men, he took sketches of mentally ill patients at an asylum. Some artist peers helped model for him. They knew why Jericho was working so hard. He wanted to shock the Parisian art world. To replicate the colour of the sea, he went to see it directly. To recreate a storm, he set out to find one. He did nothing but eat and paint. This is one of his supporting sketches. It's not a scene that gives us hope of there ever being a rescue. We see the crew's bodies twisted, their eyes devoid of humanity. Not only that, we can see one man bite into another's arm. his victim having already lost his head. Here is a more complete study. It's very similar to the finished painting. The figures, less than the original, are a little more static, and the boat in the distance is bigger. After making this sketch, Géricault began work on his final composition. He added more movement, more bodies, and made the distant hope of rescue fainter. Look at the final composition, and imagine this. A horrendous event from recent memory that nobody wants reminding of, dredged up and rendered on a massive scale in striking realism before all of Paris. Finding oneself faced with something so shocking, it's hard to form rational opinions in a moment like that. People just stop and stare in astonishment. Then after, there will be those who react favorably and those that don't. And in the art world, artists at the forefront often face praise and criticism in equal measure. This is often a way to measure if an artist is successful or not. The same with this artwork. This caused a sensation. But Géricault didn't manage to become instantly established like he had wanted to. This is often the story amongst those who try to blaze a trail. But for now, Géricault was satisfied. Nobody denies that this is amongst one of the finest works in the Louvre. When we read about Romanticism in the textbooks of art, The Raft of Medusa is a work we can't ignore, due to his treatment of the figure's forms and the overflow of emotive motifs. Today's work, although rich in artistic significance, is one of art's more disturbing works. Perhaps it's a good time to have a cup of tea and listen to some nice music. Join me next time for our next stop on the Louvre tour. Have a wonderful day.
Nice to meet you. Everyone, it's time to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you next time.